The silence in 17-year-old Jake's bedroom spoke louder than any conversation he'd ever had with his father. For years, that silence had been the soundtrack of their relationship empty spaces where guidance should have lived, quiet voids where affection should have bloomed. Jake had learned to expect nothing, and his father had never disappointed him in that regard. His parents' divorce had been inevitable, with Jake's dad's emotional distance serving as one of the main catalysts for the family's fracture. While his mother had picked up the pieces and rebuilt their lives with warmth and presence, his father had simply continued his pattern of absence. Physically there on occasion, emotionally unreachable always. 2 years ago, his father started dating Mona. Jake barely registered her existence beyond polite hellos during the rare visits to his dad's apartment. She was just another person orbiting his father's distant planet, another relationship Jake had no real stake in. When they announced the pregnancy, Jake felt nothing. Not joy, not resentment. Just the familiar numbness that came from years of emotional disconnection. Then Mona's pregnancy took a dangerous turn. Complications forced her hospitalization weeks ago, and she hadn't left the sterile hospital walls since. Jake knew only the barest details. His father's communication style hadn't evolved to include actual information sharing, just demands and expectations. Last month, his father dropped a bomb with all the casual indifference of someone ordering coffee. He was leaving for a 2-week work trip, something he'd done Jake's entire life without a second thought. But this time came with strings attached. "I need you to check on Mona while I'm gone," his father said, his voice carrying that familiar tone of assumed compliance. "Visit her at the hospital. Make sure she's okay." Jake's response was immediate and honest. "I'm not doing that." His father's face tightened with irritation. "It's important. You should want to check on the baby at least." But Jake didn't want to check on Mona or the baby. They weren't his responsibility. They were products of a relationship with a man who'd never bothered to build a real relationship with his own son. Why should Jake suddenly care about his father's new family when his father had barely cared about his first one? 2 days into his father's trip, Jake's phone exploded with rage. His father's voice crackled through the speaker, harsh and accusatory, demanding to know why Jake hadn't visited Mona. Jake hung up, the click of the disconnected call feeling like the most honest communication they'd had in years. The situation escalated when Mona went into premature labor. His father cut his work trip short, something he'd never done for Jake's school events, achievements, or emotional needs. But for Mona, for this baby, suddenly distance could be shortened and priorities could shift. Even as he rushed back, his father expected Jake to fill the gap. "Go be with her until I get there," he demanded, as if Jake were an interchangeable placeholder in his father's life. A warm body to occupy space until the real connections arrived. Jake refused. His father made it in time, and doctors managed to stop the labor. But the medical crisis became secondary to his father's fury at Jake's defiance. The following 3 to 4 weeks brought more contact from his father than Jake had experienced in his entire 17 years. But every call, every text, every interaction dripped with beratement and blame. His father's sudden attention felt like acid corrosive and painful, burning away any hope that their relationship might ever heal. "What kind of son are you?" his father finally screamed during one particularly heated confrontation. The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been smoldering for years. Jake's response came from a place of hard-earned truth. "I'm a good son to the mom who was a real parent to me, and a disinterested son to the disinterested dad in my life." The words landed like stones in still water, creating ripples his father couldn't ignore. Years of neglect, of emotional absence, of prioritizing work trips over parent-teacher conferences, of choosing distance over connection. All of it crystallized in that single statement. Now, Jake believes Mona has given birth. The labor likely came again and couldn't be stopped this time. He's not entirely sure his father hasn't bothered to share that information clearly. But even from what Jake assumes is a hospital room with a newborn baby, his father continues his campaign of anger, still screaming about hospital visits Jake never made to a woman he barely knows. The bitter irony isn't lost on Jake. His father suddenly expects emotional labor Jake was never taught to give by the man who was supposed to teach him. Have you ever been expected to care for people your parent chose when that parent never showed care for you? Can a lifetime of emotional neglect be erased by sudden demands for compassion? Share your thoughts. These complex family dynamics deserve honest conversation.